Good evening and welcome to tonight's Zoning Board of Appeals hearing. Let me introduce some members of town government that assist this board. To my left is Paul Hennings, attorney to the board. To his left is Blaise Donadio, a planner in the planning department. And to his left is Lehman Trotter, a planner in the planning department. You are all here tonight seeking relief from the Smithtown zoning ordinances. And it's our job to try to help you achieve the relief you are requesting whenever possible. It's up to you to provide us with precise, accurate information so we as a board can make a decision based on the facts that you present tonight. We as a board must consider the 5 following conditions, and they're listed here for you. Number 1, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the variance. Number 2, whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some other means. 3, whether the variance is substantial. 4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood. And last, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created. Procedures for tonight's meeting. Cases will be called in the order that they are advertised. When you are called, please present your certificates of postings and mailings to Mr. Donadio. Then you'll be asked to go to the podium where you'll state your name and address for the record and proceed to tell us why you need the variance. At the end of your presentation, if anyone in the audience would like to speak on your case, they will be given one opportunity to do so. Then the applicant can come back to the podium to answer their concerns. Once the public hearing is closed, no further information will be accepted concerning the case. There are 3 ways to find out about your case. You can stay after the hearing, but there's no guarantee that your case will be acted on tonight. 2, you can call the planning office tomorrow morning. Or 3, you can wait and be notified by mail. We do have one adjournment tonight. It's case number 1-17743, GDF Realty. Is there anybody here for that case? That has been adjourned to June 13th. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first case on the agenda, 17745 Elizabeth Del Bono, 5 William Street, Smithtown. The location of the property, the southeast corner of Caroline Avenue and William Street. The property is zoned R10 and NB. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum front yard from 25 to 19 feet on William Street for a proposed 146-square-foot porch.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I need the applicant first.
Oh,
Good evening.
Good evening.
Could you state your name and address for the record, please?
Elizabeth Del Bono, 5 William Street, Smithtown, New York.
Would you like this gentleman to speak on your behalf?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could you state your name, spell
Chris-
your last name for the
Chris
record?
Gray, Gray, architect, 2401 Capri Place, North Belmont, New York, representing Elizabeth Del Bono. Good evening. My client wishes to construct a second floor on our home, and in doing so, with a front cantilever of 18 inches. The existing face of the home, this is a corner property, and the cantilever we'd like to extend into the front yard 18 inches, where a 25-foot front yard is required. And also, on the first floor, I'd like to add a 6-foot porch, which extends 6 feet into the front yard setback. The porch will soften the house. It's shaped a little bit like a box, so that porch will help to soften things up and look very nice in the neighborhood, as well as provide shelter at the front door for people coming in. And that porch will also conceal that 18-inch, that second floor we'd like to extend into the front yard. That is our case.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions? Planning?
No, thank you.
No. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard of this application? No. Can I have a motion to close this case, please?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The next case on the agenda, number 17746, St. James Fire District, 221 Jefferson Avenue, St. James. The location of the property, the southeast corner of Jefferson Avenue and Woodlawn Avenue. The property is zoned R21 and R10. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum parking setback along Jefferson Avenue from 50 feet to 10 feet, reduce the number of landscape islands from 12 to 8, increase the front yard pavement from 25 to 36% on Woodlawn Avenue, increase the front yard pavement from 25 to 30% on Jefferson Avenue, increase the maximum height of a wall sign from 10 feet to 19 feet, increase the maximum square footage of a wall sign from 12 feet to 102 square feet.
Good evening.
Green cards.
Good evening.
My name is William Carney. I live at 12 Lieutenant John A. Olson Lane in St. James, and I'm one of the 5 commissioners of the St. James Fire District.
Fine. 1 second, please.
Sorry to interrupt. Do you have the green return receipt cards and the
Yes.
green and white certified mailing receipts? Thank you.
And would you like this gentleman to speak on your behalf?
Martin will speak.
Thank you. Again, could you state your name for the record, spell your last name, give your address,
Good
please?
evening. My name is Martin Senlewski, Sendlewski. My office is located at 215 Roanoke Avenue, Riverhead, New York. I'm the architect for the St. James Fire District. To start, I would just like to note one thing. I had noticed it when I received the notice of the hearing. The one request for the 10-foot setback from 50 feet, that's actually an incorrect dimension. Our setback is 20 feet. We actually show a 19 6-foot dimension on one curb, which we would increase to the 20 feet, similar to the curb on the other side of the driveway. I didn't pick it up until I read the notice that we have a 20-foot yard, not a 10-foot yard. So I just wanted to make a note of that.
So 50 to 20.
That is correct. With respect to this variance request, the items that I would like to note are specific to the considerations that this board takes into account. First of all, whether or not this would result in an undesirable change to the area. This site actually has been utilized since 1968 as the fire district site. So the actual use of the site and the development of the site has been existing since 1968. So there's no change of use. We are actually going to raise an existing building and replace it with a new building. So we therefore feel that there's really no tremendous change. There are certainly going to be changes physically and with the construction of the new building and the site development. But as far as the character, it will remain the St. James Fire District facility. In looking at methods to accommodate the needs of the district, the district has looked at numerous options for providing for adequate facilities over the course of a number of years. The Board of Fire Commissioners are a elected governmental body. The district is a special district in the state of New York, and they are charged with the responsibility of providing for adequate facilities and equipment for the fire department members to respond and protect the community and property of the St. James Fire District. In going through that over the years, they looked at a number of options. We looked at evaluations of the existing facilities, and a number of options were looked at. And given the condition of the facilities, if you remember, not too long ago, there was a considerable situation with floodwater in the firehouse that came from pipes that are actually broken under the slab. There's been some settlement to the building. In looking at the options for either adding or trying to upgrade the buildings, the Board of Fire Commissioners is charged with their responsibility, along with the reviews of myself, other engineers, et cetera, of the costs associated with either building a new building or adding on, made a determination that it was a much more advantage to the protection of the district, and also the prudent thing to do to consider a new facility. So in doing that, what we had done is we had laid out the new site plans, prepared everything, submitted it to the town, and they did their evaluation with regard to the variances required, and that brought us here this evening. So they have gone through an extensive search. This is an existing site that can accommodate the new facility, and it's certainly the most prudent approach to solving their needs. As far as the variances themselves, whether or not they would be substantial, again, I did note that the one setback is 20 feet, not 10 feet. There are existing situations on the roads, including on Jefferson Avenue, where that particular item refers to, where they have right now the apparatus bays are facing that area, so you have the apparatus apron. There is parking that's actually closer than 50 feet now that pre-exists. The configuration of the property, when you look at it, as we have the drive-around parking, so there's no dead ends in the back parking area, works to provide them with the amount of parking that they need for membership during meetings and also during drills and responding to fires. And there is also a small parking area on the side of the building toward the corner, which is where the entrance is for the administrative portion of the building. So visitors coming to the fire facility would utilize that parking more, and the volunteers in the back. You can see that dimensionally, we could not slide the building further eastward on Wood Lawn because they have the Monument Park there, and there's an existing garage building behind the new building that will remain, and we need adequate circulation clearance in that area. So we moved the building as tight as we could, and we still have the parking to the west side, and that's what created the need for this variance. I would add that we do have planned for the site, and we will, subsequent to this, if we are granted the relief we seek, we are still in the process of going through a site plan review, which would be required to complete the secret process with the town. So as part of that, we indicate a buffer, landscaped buffer along that yard. Our goal with that buffer will be to just develop a buffer that will have an adequate height and enough blockage that anybody pulling into those spots would not point any headlights or anything toward any adjacent properties. So we will have a buffer. We'll review that with the planning staff, and even if it required, or maybe as a condition of an approval, required a fence at that location, we think it would actually be nice to do a 4-foot residential style fence that's opaque with landscaping in front of it. That would then totally block out any opportunity for headlights to be beamed onto the adjacent properties. As far as the percentage of parking, especially on Wood Lawn, the fire district facilities have a fire truck apron. It's not really a parking area. It's an apron where they pull the trucks out upon receipt of a call. As members arrive, they then man the trucks, and then they pull off from there. So all of the frontline trucks, and these are all frontline vehicles, pumpers, rescue, aerial, all of the trucks that they need, and ambulances as frontline equipment that rolls out of the firehouse, has bay doors in front of the firehouse and rolls out. So that's what generates that large area of apron in front of the firehouse. That is very much a firematic use. It's for the emergency protection of the community to get those trucks out and roll them, even if a number of trucks have to roll at one particular period of time. Other than that, the sign variance is really, when I looked at the height and the letter of the law and the signs, our overhead doors are 14 feet high for the trucks. We design our buildings with 14-foot high doors, which exceeds the maximum DOT allowable height. So unlike current facilities that the fire district has, this facility will never be antiquated. It will always be able to fit anything that's legally allowed to drive on the roads. With that, the signage is really not a sign. It's not an advertisement. It's not commercial. It's strictly the building lettering across the front of the building over the overhead doors that are spread out, and they're just individual letters. It's not an opaque 100-square-foot sign. It's just individual letters that when you draw a line around them, create that area, and they're at that height because they're above the doors. But it's really just more of an identification of a public facility is what that really is. It's not commercial signage. As to any adverse effects that may have been expected, we have gone through an initial secret process with the Board of Fire Commissioners, who, for the purposes of the fire district, are the governmental body and the lead agency as far as doing it on their end. The town is doing secret also in conjunction with site plan. We've gone through and identified issues such as these setbacks, which is what's making us do things like the landscape barriers and additional landscaping around the site. And also, it's important to acknowledge that the drainage on the site is going to be improved considerably also. There was substantial flooding here when we had the storm that rendered the fire district uninhabitable. So we have all of the drainage in place. That will be, again, extensively reviewed with the planning staff as we go through it. We do have an additional overflow, which is just it's on a recharge area that's going to have water in it. It's just a good practice to have an area that even if the bays were to, the pools were to charge fully, you would have an area for additional runoff to remain on site, so there'd be no chance of flooding. Fire district facilities under building code are essential facilities, so there are actually increases in code requirements for them. They have to remain as essential facilities. By doing that and exceeding the code for drainage, we're assuring that they would never have a situation similar to the one that they had previously. As far as what created this request is the fact that fire districts are actually not even recognized in zoning. Fire districts, every fire district in the town of Smithtown, or most of them, are actually in residential areas or residentially zoned properties. They're always placed at a location where that is optimum for them for response time to protect the property and protect the residents of the district. So the site's been here, it's been what they've utilizing. There is no zoning that allows for it. There's been a number of case reviews where it has been determined that based on a balancing of interest of the community needs, in this case also the needs of the fire district to protect the community, there's a balancing that also goes in as far as weighing zoning. But regardless of that, it's, we're going through the process. We've gone through our initial secret. The town's doing its secret on the site plan. And we would rather address these issues, because what happens is, as issues such as this come up, especially things where there's an area variance, and we mentioned about the parking and headlights, it then becomes about, when a need is established, mitigation. So what we're looking at is anything that we need to do on this site plan as far as screening, increased drainage. Everything will be dark skies compliant as far as lighting, with full house shield cutoff, so the light fixtures, the source of light would not be visible from anywhere off the property. All of those things brought into effect are things that we do to mitigate any potential effects that are a result of this site plan application. If there were any questions, myself or any of the commissioners would be more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right. Would there be an emergency generator on the site?
Yes, there would be an emergency generator on site. We will have a natural gas generator on site. The generator that we use, though, will have a sound attenuation enclosure. We do a lot of generators. Just to give you a very brief background on why I'm here, my office has done fire district work for 33 years. We've done over 110 districts in New York State. We've done a lot of emergency generators. All of them are in residential areas. And you can get, that's a part of our spec. The spec requires very high-end sound attenuation, where literally there will be no noise or anything generated to any adjacent properties or et cetera. And we do them with natural gas with an LP underground tank as a backup, so that in the unfortunate event that should something happen, where both power and for any reason, with any activity or issues we may have, we've seen in the past, for some reason the gas were cut off, this facility as an essential facility would remain in full operation. And that includes the full operation of the site, not just emergency power for selective operation of the site. The entire service of the building will run through the emergency generator.
location of the generator, side, rear?
Actually, I believe the location that we're looking at is going to be back alongside the garage in the rear of the property. If you look, there's this garage facility here. And this is toward the back of the property. What we would look to do is put the generator in an area there, fence it in, screen it with planting. Realistically, I don't think anybody would even know it's there.
Thank you.
Yes, right, and actually, the existing generator is a diesel generator. We find that the gas generators with the LP backup is a much better way to go. It's much more environmentally friendly, and it's been a good solution for us on many fire districts in the past.
All right, thank you.
I just have a question. The building is coming down. What are you doing in the meantime? Is the trucks going to be just outside?
Well, actually, what happens right now is the way that the design is set up. Right now, the fire trucks egress to the west onto, they exit onto Jefferson Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
The new building, what will happen is we've placed the new building. This was part of that, the methods that we reviewed in satisfying the needs of the district. Part of it is staying in business. So what we have now is we have the building facing Woodlawn. So the new building, and this is a real nice, I have a lot of projects I've done like this where we've had this opportunity. I've had some where we haven't. And when you have an opportunity like this, it's very good to take advantage of. They'll be able to roll out of the existing firehouse while this is being constructed. And then once this building is occupied and they get a CO and they can start moving in and utilizing the building, we will then raise the other structure and then continue with the parking lot development there. It's going to be a little bit inconvenient. It's going to be a little hard to live there for a while, but you know, it's certainly something that they'll put up with in order to get a facility that will certainly satisfy their needs, what they need to give to their department guys to protect the property and residents of their district.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got a couple questions. One of the things, obviously, understanding that this is something that needs to be in a residential neighborhood, in the interest of trying to balance that need versus impact on the neighbors. The structure's pretty bulky for a residential neighborhood, and I noticed that you got some parapets that push the height of that thing significantly higher than the actual roof. Mm-hmm. You're showing a roof at about 34 feet, and you're showing the parapet to 42, and then the cupola is up around 50 feet. Mm-hmm. I also noticed there's some space between the upper windows and the start of that parapet. Is it possible to reduce some of that bulk and then make it feel more in keeping with that residential character of that neighborhood? And
absolutely. Absolutely it is. That is possible. What we would like to do is I usually like to keep a height, because we're going to have roof units on the roof, so I don't want the roof units to be visible. But to be honest with you, because the building is high, and the parapets are high, when you look at it from the street setbacks, I think the height that we have could substantially be reduced.
Okay.
I mean, I think we could go down to even 42 or 48 inches tops above the roof. That would bring it up to like 39, and would also lower the cupola accordingly. You know, the cupola would then lower down also. The cupola is sort of like a little off-take of the old cupola on the old firehouse also. We just, you know, we like the cupola. It's sort of a traditional, you know, aspect of a fire facility. So, but yes, by all means.
So if we look at it as existing roof height stays the same, so they get full use of exactly what they wanted.
Yes.
And we add, say, 48 inches, that would be more than enough to cover any rooftop unit.
I could certainly accommodate that request.
So, okay, so if we make
I don't
that-
think the board has any issue with that, with the scale of the building coming down a little bit. Absolutely.
Okay, all right, thank you, I appreciate it.
Sure.
Any other questions? Planning?
Mr. Chairman, just a few comments in addition to Mr. Tanzi's question about the height of the roof. That was certainly an issue that we had. It is as proposed, it would be a very tall, imposing structure. Even with a 66-foot setback from Woodlawn Avenue, it would have quite a significant visual impact to the residents who live across the street. One of the things that we would certainly recommend is having a flat roof on the building and keeping it not more than the 35 feet that it's permitted to be, have all of the roof appurtenances move towards the rear of the building and maybe do a little bit of screening around it. Another thing is that to try to cut back on the impact of the size of the building to the people who are living across the street is to also push it away from Woodlawn Avenue an additional 20 feet, an additional 20-foot setback. It doesn't seem like a lot, but it may help bringing down the height of the roof and pushing the building back further. It wouldn't feel like the building was right on top of the people who live on Woodlawn Avenue. And in looking at the site plan, we do see that they have front and rear overhead doors for the fire vehicles and emergency vehicles. And there's a parking lot right behind the rear doors to the, I guess that would be the south of the building. There's landscaping aisles proposed to be there. It might be more fruitful to take those landscape aisles, move them towards the rear of the parking lot in the back, and then that way they would have more unrestricted access in and out of the back of the building.
All right, thank you.
Can I just have 1 minute to just...
Certainly.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, actually, just my initial concern, which I see we would still be clear of, and that would be the back corner, which would be the southwesterly corner of the proposed building. By pushing it back to 20 feet, it would still remain clear of the garage building in the back. That does have also garage doors facing to the west. So we would still remain clear of that, so they could still maneuver and utilize that garage. So that 20 feet would not impact us there. By moving the islands to the back, that certainly doesn't impact us, and we would lose a couple of parking spaces, 2 spaces per row, but that's not a terrible impact either. And it basically gives them the benefit of a little bit of additional apron, which doesn't hurt because they pull all the trucks out on the apron, especially on a nice day when they're cleaning up the bays. So I see that as being no problem at all. With regard to the height, the 35 feet is the roof, and the parapet would be, we would stay with the 35 with the roof, but that we do have that additional 4 feet of parapet. So the strict 35 for the roof would be maintained, but the parapet would still be 4 feet higher. And that's really to, I mean, it's, if we push the units to the back, I mean, then they would be visible from the back. I don't know if, I would like to, since we've started at a much higher, I would like to get the, and it still essentially does comply with the ordinance that the parapet can exceed that height. I would rather stay with that design with the additional 4 feet to the 39 feet, only because we do have good size units. I mean, we have a meeting room that's going to have probably a 15-ton unit, and we got a vehicle exhaust systems that connect to the trucks and exhaust on the roof, and there's a lot going on up there. So I would rather make sure that that's screened for that little bit of additional height with the building being set further back. One of the things that does drive that is the 14-foot overhead door. When you're done with the door, the clearance above the door, the framing, the structure, you're up past 19 feet from your ground level floor to your second floor level because of the apparatus. So the height of the bay is what drives that height, and that's what you see is the problem with many fire districts and facilities we've replaced is with the apparatus and OSHA requirements, they can't even buy custom cabs to fit them in the lower doors these days. So I would like to get consideration for the, well, it's not even a variance issue. I just like, on site plan review, I'd like to get consideration with that and architectural review that we be able to keep that 4 feet if possible. And again, what we did do also, which is an important point, is that the administrative area and the stair area that's clear of the center portion of the building where the apparatus is, we did step that down. So in other words, these areas will be lower. They will actually those areas will actually be lower than 35. Because the roofs on those areas are a little bit lower. We don't need as much room for mechanical equipment and whatnot as we do for the large meeting rooms. So that works for us, where it's only going to be that center portion, and again, that now is going to be down here, and these are actually going to be at the 35, the two side areas, so.
I personally think that the parapet, even though we're just calling it that, is actually going to look like a traditional steep pitch roof. Really is more in keeping with the historic nature of St. James anyway than having a brick flat roof building in a residential neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, we think, with the benefit of the blocking the units, and, I mean, when we could certainly, stay tighter with it with the 35 at the center and the 34, and then keep the administrative, for that to only be in the center portion, and the administrative areas, the top of the parapet itself would be 35. We would certainly meet it with a good portion of the building, but that one center area, I'm concerned about the HVAC units. I've seen so many nice buildings where you don't think you're going to see it, and you step back and you look up, and it's a beautiful building, and there's this big gray unit sticking up, and it's just not something that we like to see.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard in this application? Come on up, please. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm John Rowan, R-O-W-A-N. I live at 218 Jefferson Avenue, directly across the street from the current fire department. I bought the house about 9 years ago. I love the fire department. It's a nice one-story, quaint facility. To go to 2 stories in a residential neighborhood, my property value is going to decrease. Trees are going to have to be cut down. A lot of trees are going to have to be cut down. The whole 2-story building is going to change the whole residence. So I'm very, very concerned. Again, increased traffic and noise because you're going to combine 2 facilities, decrease in property values, trees cut down, increase in cement pavement. I guess my one quick first question is we have a facility on 25A, which is definitely in a commercial area. One side is a gas station, another side is office buildings. Why can't that be used as an alternative site? I mean, this facility is surrounded by, this current facility is surrounded by homes on every side. Why can't we use the 25A site? That's one of my questions, I guess. The traffic increases every year on Woodlawn. I'm retired, so every day on the corner of Woodlawn and Jefferson, horns blare every day. There's a fender bender once a month, and there's a serious accident every 3 or 4 months. Last month, both airbags were exploded in the cars. So has a traffic report been done? Like, what do you do for increased traffic? So that's another question I have. Again, trees are going to get cut down. It's definitely significantly changing the appeal of the neighborhood. I understand the signs on the front of the building, but again, we're in a residence. So so that's what I have to say. But I guess I'm really want to know why can't the 25A site, which is definitely in a commercial area, can't be used.
We'll ask.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Mary
Could you use the microphone, please?
Dwyer, D-W-Y-E-R. I live at 198 Lake Avenue in St. James. My question is, what is the buffer on Sherwood Drive, the whole wooded lot that's there? The fire department, the back of the fire department property is basically in my backyard. So say push it back, how much will it be pushed back? Believe me, I used to be in the fire department. I appreciate everything that they do, but I have to think about my home and what it's going to do. How much of that wooded area around the fire department will be taken down?
I'll ask.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
It's all staying. It's all staying. this the one you-
Anyone else? Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Troy Rosasco, 19 Highland Avenue, St. James.
Could you spell your last name, please?
Sure, Rosasco. First and foremost, I would like to acknowledge the great volunteers and the fire district. They have been to my house. They do great work, and nothing that I might say tonight is meant to at all impede on their professionalism and what they do for the community. In looking at the considerations that this board will take into account, one of them is whether or not the alleged difficulty is self-created. And I would submit to you that all the alleged difficulties with these variances are self-created. As the woman before mentioned, we have a main firehouse up on 25A, always have since 1922. It has been expanded 3 times since that time, and in 2013, in fact, the fire district proposed expanding it again. So here we are in 2017, and quite frankly, I don't know what, if anything, has changed about St. James that couldn't revert to the 2013 expansion up on 25A. And just to be clear, and I believe it was the attorney for the fire district before, he referred to it as a fire district house. No, it's not. It's a substation. Always has been a substation. And that's why they put substations in residential areas. They put the main station on a commercial thoroughfare, 25A. I know I go throughout Long Island, and I see tons of huge fire district houses, many, many beautiful ones, and I'm sure this architect has done many of the beautiful ones, but they're huge, and they're on Jericho Turnpike. They're on Middle Country Road. They're not, stuck on a postage stamp in the middle of a residential area. And if you look at this, essentially what you've got here, because the fire district has already told us all that their plan is part of the bond referendum is to abandon the main firehouse and to sell it. Again, abandon the main firehouse and to sell it. So essentially you take everything at the main firehouse, plop it on top of the substation, and to me that just sounds like the wrong way to do it. It's like taking the larger structure, throwing it on top of the smaller structure. And to that extent, that's why I believe the fire district is creating its own difficulties here. In addition, we should look at this in the big perspective. The original firehouse, the main firehouse, is a historic structure. I don't think anyone would argue that. Now, here we have the town board not more than 2 weeks ago saying we're going to invest $2 million in Lake Avenue to make everything more beautiful and more historic than it has been in the past. And the original firehouse, the main firehouse, is right on the corner of 25A and Lake Avenue. Now, if the fire district abandons that, maybe it's going to, crumble and be empty for many years, like many of the structures on Lake Avenue, or maybe it gets sold to a CVS. Is that really helping our historic hamlet of St. James? I'm not so sure. So again, it's just getting back to my point that all the alleged difficulties here are created by the fire district. Now, on the issue of whether or not the variances are substantial, I think they are, absolutely. So if you we'll take the architect's new numbers, okay, on the issue of the setback. He now has stated and corrected it that there's now going to be a 20-foot setback, I believe, as opposed to a 10-foot setback. Okay, so that's not a 10% decrease. It's not a 20% decrease. That's a 60% decrease. A 60% decrease in the setback in a residential area. I don't personally think that's appropriate when you're throwing up a 2-story building in a residential area. Then if you look, okay, at the signs, okay, say what you want about the nature of the signs, but they want the signs and the maximum height of a wall sign to go from 10 feet to 19 feet. Well, that's a 90% increase. It's not a 10% increase, not a 25% increase. It's a 90% increase in a residential area. So, you know, no other houses in the area have big signs, okay? Now you're going to have this huge structure with huge signs on the structure. Not saying it's inappropriate if it was in the right place, but in a residential area, no, I don't think it is in the right place. And then, on top of that, regarding the signs, the increase in the maximum square footage of the signs will go from 12 feet to 102 square feet. Well, the increase in square footage is just unbelievable. That's a 750 square foot increase. A 750, that just, you know, is that what you want to do? And I'm not saying that's what you may not you may not consider it, but it just seems to me to be a little much for a residential area, especially when they have an alternative to do this. They can go back to the bond proposal from 2013, okay? Maybe they've got to do a little bit better to get out their message and refurbish the one main house, not the substation, the main house that's on a state thoroughfare. So that's one of my other points. Obviously, some of the other residents talked about the detriment to their own properties, and I think they said it quite well. The other consideration, okay, and these are all legal considerations, certainly, that you'll be, you'll be considering. Whether the benefits sought by the applicant, the fire district, can be achieved by some other means. Well, absolutely. Just keep the main firehouse right where it is and refurbish it as they planned in the 2013 bond. And don't try to take the Empire State Building and throw it on a postage stamp in the middle of a residential area. That's, it just seems like we've got some upside down ideas here. Not much, and I will say this, there has been very little input from the community regarding this. No surveys went out to the St. James Fire District saying, listen, where would you like us to put it? Okay? What would be your considerations? Okay? There were supposed to be open houses, okay, to discuss this, for the community to give input. They were suddenly called off, okay, because apparently the fire district didn't realize that they needed permission from the zoning board for various and sundry things. So I think we should probably back up for a second, look at the historic hamlet of St. James, recognize why we all moved here. A lot of that has to do with the fact that it's historic. I would hate to see the historic firehouse on 25A sold, abandoned, and turned into something that it was never meant to be. It is right next to Deep Wells Farm. It is right next to the general store. It is right down the road from the historic St. James Railroad Station. And it's right at the end of what the town is now considering beautifying Lake Avenue. So what good is it to beautify Lake Avenue, all along Lake Avenue, if at the end of it, you're now going to see an abandoned firehouse with no idea as to what may end up being there at the end of the day. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Come on up, please. Good evening.
Hello, my name is Lori Robedy, Robedee. I live at 124 Woodlawn Avenue. Everyone else has spoken about the size of the building. We all can see the pictures and see how large it's going to be. I'm going to take it from my front door. Between 4:30 and 7 o'clock, the traffic in front of my house is at a standstill. When that accident occurred at the corner of Woodlawn and Jefferson, the responders were sitting in traffic and couldn't get to the house on Jefferson. Response time during those hours is at a standstill. It took the responders a very long time to get to the corner, and the house is right there. Both airbags did deploy in that car. We really thought someone died in that accident. We see this every single day. The accidents at Jefferson are horrendous and getting worse. There is a bus stop there, both public school and parochial school. I'm doing my best to stop the tractor trailers on Lake Avenue because they're not supposed to be on it. I'm working with the 4th Precinct diligently to stop it. But if we now add 100% of the fire calls coming out of Jefferson Avenue, I know it's about 80% now. They said only about 20% is coming out of the 25A house. If now we're going to get 100 calls, 100% of the calls out of Jefferson, how? I don't know how the responders are supposed to get to Jefferson Avenue and respond to a call in Head of the Harbor before the house burns to the ground. I respect what everybody does. I know they're volunteering their time, but I don't want someone's house to burn to the ground, someone to die, because the responders are stuck in traffic on Woodlawn Avenue trying to get to the firehouse.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Hyland, Hyland, and I live at 237 Jefferson. I live just north of Woodlawn. Bought our house in 1987, knowing full well there was a substation on Jefferson. We hear the accidents every day on the corner of Jefferson and Woodlawn. As Ms. Robedy, Mr. Rosasco said, the impact of this building will affect the entire neighborhood. This is a residential area, and I'm very concerned about my property value. I'm very concerned about the effect on the traffic. My daughter, trying to cross Woodlawn after the crossing guards were gone, coming home from high school, was almost hit, and this was several years ago. The amount of traffic on that street, people do not respect the speed limit. People run the stop signs, and adding more traffic due to more alarms and an increase in responders is going to make the situation much more difficult for the residents and for everyone in the neighborhood. I also am concerned about the size of the facility. I think that building something of that size in the middle of a residential area will detract from the area. I agree with Mr. Rosasco that 25A is a much more accessible and appropriate location, and I think that this plan is really something that is going to have a negative effect on St. James. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
My name is Emre Salman, S-A-L-M-A-N. I live on 139 Woodlawn Avenue, right across the fire department. And I also absolutely respect all the work and the volunteering they do. But I share most of the concerns and would like to emphasize again how residential the area is as compared to, you can look at the Nesconset Fire Department, the main fire department on 25A, the Stony Brook. So this one is literally surrounded by houses on all sides. So bringing a building at that scale, I think will have significant impact. And the capacity of Woodlawn Avenue is, I think, the street is over capacity at the moment. During the rush hours, if you, I can see the line of cars from the traffic light at Lake and Woodlawn. They go all the way down 5-6 blocks, line of cars during the rush hour. It's not a really very wide street, and I'm not sure how many more fire trucks is expected in the new facility. That's one of the questions I would ask. But I think it will have a significant negative impact. And also another question is, if the facility needs a better building, better structure, why not rebuild the existing buildings in their own locations rather than putting it by the Woodlawn Avenue so close to the main street?
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I say something?
Sure.
I personally, and I'm sure the whole board does, hear everyone's concerns with respect to the firehouse going in that location. This board doesn't have the jurisdiction to keep the fire district. If the fire district determines that the building goes there, it goes there. We can, what we're talking about today is all dimensional in nature, whether they can have the parking closer than 50 feet to the street, whether they can have 8 islands instead of 12 islands. We don't have the ability to say, no, you can't put the house there. What we're trying to do is work with the fire district to make that facility be as unimpacting on the residential neighborhood as is possible. Outside of that, there's really nothing we can do other than, hopefully minimize that impact by trying to put some restrictions on it because they're asking for those dimensional relief things. So I just wanted to make that clear because we can't stop the fire district from putting the building there.
Now you're going to have all these questions.
1 second, please. We'll have to bring them all back up again.
Should have said that at the beginning.
One at a time. Come on back. Again, just state your name. So.
Mary Dwyer.
Thank you.
So do you have any say in the sheer size of it being so large and such an impact on the area?
They're not asking for any dimensional relief with respect to the building itself.
The height and the whole?
No, they had made a concession that, if we'll grant those other ones, we asked if they could bring the height down so that it wasn't as impacting, but they are allowed to go to 35 feet, which is what they're asking to do.
My concern is that wooded area in the back.
And it appears that that's staying intact.
All staying intact.
I think the chairman's going to ask him that, but it appears on the plan that that's all going to stay intact.
Okay. I have no problem with building a new firehouse there. It's just, why does it have to be so huge? That's my question. So,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you. Just state your name again, please, for the record.
Sure. Troy Rosasco, R-O-S-A-S-C-O, 19 Highland Avenue, St. James. One of my friends who lives on Jefferson was just sharing with me that if there is, and perhaps this doesn't go to dimensions, but I think we need to consider safety here. And perhaps this is not the venue to consider safety, but I'm sure you're concerned, Mr. Tanzi, with safety, with the community. And on his section of Jefferson, how there are cars that are allowed to park on the street, And Jefferson going north actually narrows going north. And you're not going to be able, and Jefferson goes all the way up to 25A, which then, will take us over the head of the harbor, okay, which you got to remember, head of the harbor gets $300,000 from, or gives this fire district $300,000 to protect their homes. Who knows how they're, they don't get to vote on this, by the way, this bond. But suffice it to say, I do believe that if you deny these variances in toto, because they have been self-created and they have another way to do this by doing what they did in 2013, refurbishing the 25A and also refurbishing the substation, okay, then I think that really helps the entire community. Deny all the variances in toto, and maybe that will change the plans they have, the fire district, for the bond. Again, my question is, what has changed since 2013? I don't know, do you remember in 2013 what the plan was like, to refurbish the 25A house?
I don't personally know.
Yeah, so I think that's something that this board, should consider looking into, because if you deny all the variances, then that may allow them to do exactly what they want to do, is to build that massive firehouse on 25A where I think it would be more appropriate. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Come on. Again, just state your name, please, for the record.
John Rowan. I don't know if you can answer this, but so I'm hearing that basically they can build this two-story building and we can't really do anything about it. Who can I talk to say I'm not happy about this two-story building?
I believe the fire district is its own entity. Really what we're talking about tonight is about 28 parking spaces. If we denied everything, they would lose about 28 parking spaces and some paving, and they could still put everything right the way they have.
Can I ask them a question?
Well,
You can ask
us, and we'll ask them.
Okay, are we going to have some open meetings with the residents to discuss this before it happens?
We'll ask.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else before I bring him back? No?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to address some of the items that were brought up, and I am going to actually put some of the commissioners on the spot and ask some of them to come up and comment about the Route 25A location. There are some issues there that I think they would be better suited to answer. Again, I think the thought here was after the 2013 plan actually was a very large expansion of this firehouse, as well as a moderate expansion on the Route 25A firehouse. That particular plan actually had a larger building footprint than the building footprint for this particular layout. So I think it had a little bit more of an impact on the property because it was very much more spread out. Also, that plan did enter directly onto Jefferson Avenue, which, looking at it, we don't feel is the best road to enter onto as far as vehicles. That's a narrower road than Lake Road. But traffic is something that obviously the district has no control over in the area. That's, unfortunately, is just a factor of the road grid and circulation in the community. The Sherwood Drive properties, we are 75 feet from the back property line to the residential property lines with no development. So we left that wooden buffer there, and the entire corner lot is staying undeveloped. So towards Shorewood, that stays completely undeveloped. I think one of the big things here was that drove the district in this direction also is the fact that if you look at the district map and you look at the border of the map and the area that they protect, and you see where the firehouse is located, the current, I'll call it the current substation, where the new project is proposed. It's actually a very central location to coverage in the district. They do not have a lot of apparatus on the Route 25A location, and more importantly, if you look at, they have on their map, they have every member's residence location indicated on the map. And when you look at all of the firefighters that are responding to protect the community and get to the apparatus to go out and respond, and you look at the map where the firehouse is and where the members are, the 25A location is sort of out in left field when it comes to firematic purposes in terms of their response time. That when you look at it and you look at the map is fairly evident. Also, other than, I'll just close on one thing and then I'll ask the board to come up, and that is that the reason that there was a delay and the reason that the public meeting was postponed, those are all still going to happen. What happened was the fire district is going through the bond process, which requires seeker to be completed legally as part of the bond process. We were ready to conclude the bond process. The town could have allowed the fire district to close the bond process and still go through the other processes with mitigation based on site plan review, but the town, as a normal course of action, also has a secret process that they're proceeding with. There's a chance, just, and this has nothing to do with anything with buildings or anything else, it just has to do with law as far as bonding is concerned, that if you do a bond vote and the secret is open, you have to close secret to do a bond. We could have closed the secret just for the bond vote and continued with secret for the building, but there have been a couple of very obscure cases where people have challenged a bond authorization because there was another secret process that hadn't closed, and the courts have overturned those bond votes as a procedural matter. So to protect just the process and to make sure we didn't waste money and go through a process that could be overturned later on, we just decided, with the council of the fire district and the board of fire commissioners, that it was prudent to just postpone that. So after the secret process is closed with the town, then we would be able to publish and post the bond vote, and there will be, absolutely, there will be public meetings. They haven't been canceled. The only reason they've been pushed back is because we're not doing a joint secret process with the town. The town has its own secret process. We just think it's better for mitigation and for addressing any issues to let that process finish before we move on with the bond vote.
All right.
So.
Someone asked a question about additional trucks, additional fire trucks.
Actually, I think if the commissioners could
Thanks.
answer that.
Okay. Good evening. Could you state your name, spell your
Ed
last name?
Springer, S-P-R-I-N-G-E-R. At present, there is one fire truck and a brush truck down at the main house. That's all that exists down at that firehouse. What we're looking to do is consolidate our efforts to one area. We only have about 8 or 9 firemen that live on the other side of the railroad tracks. So we're looking to move those 2 pieces of apparatus down to the substation or to the new main house. The ambulances are already down at the existing substation. It's just one engine and a brush truck down at the other end. That's all that's there right now. And one of the problems with Route 25A, if you think there's problems on Woodlawn Avenue, come up to 25A and try to get the firemen to the firehouse on 25A. Very, very difficult. And that's why we move most of our apparatus out of the main house to the substation, because it's easier to get to. You know, some of the firemen are coming from the back area towards the Nesconset area to the firehouse. So not everybody's locked up in traffic. But regardless, if you go to 25A in the evening, in the morning, it's impossible to get to the firehouse during those times. And again, that structure was originally built in 1922, and the latest addition was 68, and it's an old firehouse, terracotta walls. We would have loved to keep it. I was born in St. James, so I know what that firehouse means to everybody. But again, we have to look at long-term with the district. And we need to construct a building that is going to house this apparatus for the next 50 years. You know, if we do something with the main house, it's still an old building. You know, we got to move on. You know, I understand, I don't want a CVS there either, but, you know, we have to move on. It's just not a good situation anymore. Like I said, most of the firemen respond to the substation. All the ambulances come out of the substation right now, and we'll only be moving one piece of apparatus, actually two, a brush truck, back to the substation or the new main house.
All right, thank you. Can I have a motion to close this case, please?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Done it?
I think that's it.
Ready? The next case on the agenda, number 17747, Ajit Njoti Kanodia, 18 Peppermint Road, Comac. The location of the property, the west side of Peppermint Road, 731 feet south of Don Way. The property is zoned R21. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum rear yard from 75 to 60 feet for a proposed 533 square foot second-story rear wood deck.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Could you state your name and address for the record, please?
Christina Bravin, B-R-A-V-I-N, agent for the applicant.
I think we're good. We're good? Okay. We're good.
Okay, good evening. We're proposing to construct a second-story deck, 533 square feet, holding a rear yard setback of 60 feet instead of the required 75 feet. From its widest area, the deck measures 25.21 feet by 21.5 feet. The proposed deck will come off of the den in the kitchen area. This is a high ranch, so they entertain on the second floor of the home and would like the ability to entertain directly outside rather than having to go downstairs. The home to the north has a second-story deck, which is approximately 63 feet off the rear yard. And the house behind that on Town Line Road also has a structure that's basically, from what we measure, 61 feet.
Excuse me for 1 second.
Sure.
Excuse me, we can't hear if you're going to talk. If you want, you can go to the library. I think, okay. All right, thank you. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No problem. So I've submitted an aerial showing conformity to the area and 5 photos of the subject property. If you have any questions?
I will ask. Anyone on the board have any questions?
No, thank you.
Mr. Tanzi? You fine?
You want me to ask something?
No. Planning?
No, thank you.
Anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? No. Can I have a motion to close this case, please?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, I'm not going to ask anymore.
The next case on the agenda, number 17748, Christina Hughes, 311 Cambon Avenue, St. James. The location of the property, the southeast corner of Cambon Avenue and Moriches Road. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the front yard setback on Cambon Avenue from 40 to 35 feet for a proposed 108-square-foot porch. Reduce the front yard setback on Moriches Road from 40 feet to 36 feet, which is existing, for a proposed 986-square-foot second-floor addition. Reduce the minimum setback of an existing 6-foot fence from the edge of road pavement from 20 feet to 16 feet on Moriches Road. Reduce the front yard setback on Moriches Road from 40 feet to 10 feet and any lot line from 6 feet to 1 foot for an existing 70-square-foot shed. Reduce the front yard setback on Moriches Road from 40 feet to 17 feet and any lot line from 6 feet to 0 for an existing 83-square-foot shed.
Good evening.
Hi.
Can I have your name and address for the record, please?
Christina Hughes, Hughes, 311 Cambon Avenue, St. James, New York.
And would you like this gentleman to speak on your behalf?
Yes.
Fine, thank you.
Thank you.
Again, state your name, spell your last name.
Sure. My name is Michael Morbillo. I'm an architect. My firm is Nspire Design Group. My office is located at 1650 Sycamore Avenue, Bohemia, New York. So as was stated in the call of meeting, we are proposing a second floor addition and a front porch on the house. We are also looking to legalize an existing fence that is located in the front yard. If you have the survey or site plan in front of you, you can see that the site is pretty unique. It basically has street frontage on 3 sides of the home between Cambon Avenue and Moriches Road. If I go through the requests, in general, they're not substantial. The first request is to, encroach about 5 feet into the front yard for a porch. The porch will remain unenclosed. Secondly, there's a request for the second floor, which is the second request is to reduce it from 40 feet to 36 feet. The existing house presently encroaches that 36 feet. We're simply going above that, the existing residence, and will not be encroaching any further. The third request, again, is for a fence to reduce the setback from 20 feet to 16 feet for an existing fence. If you've had an opportunity to pass by the site, or if you have photographs, I have some additional photographs. The house is on this, basically has, 2 fronts, almost 3 fronts, because it's a wedge-shaped piece of property. The fence is pretty vital for maintaining the safety of the backyard. It is set back, this board has granted requests for fences in front yards in unique circumstances like this. I have some pictures, if you haven't had a chance to drive by, where the applicant has put substantial landscaping in front of the fence and in the front yard to help kind of mitigate the starkness that a fence may have when it's, in some areas where there's main roads or secondary roads like Moriches Road. So I'm just going to submit this if you haven't had a chance to see it.
Thank you.
So again, that request, again, we don't feel is not substantial because we're looking at basically, a 25% encroachment on that. Lastly, there's a couple of sheds that are on the property. Again, this is technically is their rear yard. There is a shed that is actually being removed because it was over the, or it is over the property line. So part of this application is we're proposing to remove that very small tool shed. There's also a portion of the fence, this is on the southerly property line along Moriches Road, which is presently over the property line. They had replaced a fence that had been there previously and were unaware that it was over the line at that time. So they are proposing to move that portion of the fence back onto their property and in conformance with the town code. The proposed additions will not create an undesired change in the neighborhood. There are other homes along Moriches Road and in this area which have done similar second floor additions. It's not going to create an environmental impact. They don't really have any other choice due to the configuration of the property. So this application is not self-created due to the original lot configuration. And if the board has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
Fine, thank you. Anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No.
Planning?
No, thank you.
No. Anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close this case, please?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much.
The next case on the agenda, number 17749, Adam Graff, 2 Beaujeu Court, Wisconsin. The location of the property, the southeast corner of Beaujeu Court and Lake Avenue South. The property is zoned R15. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the rear yard setback from 60 feet to 43 feet for a proposed 359 square foot attached garage addition. Reduce the minimum setback of an existing 6-foot fence from the edge of road pavement from 26 feet to 14 feet.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Can I have the applicant first?
That's me.
Oh, could you state your name, please?
Sure. It's Adam Graff, 2 Beaujeu Court, Wisconsin.
Thank you. Would you like this gentleman to speak on your behalf?
Yes, I would.
Fine, thank you. Could you state your name, spell your last name, and give the address for the record, please?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Mark Anthony Monastery, that's Munisteri. Architect for my client. My office is located at 1563 Belmore Avenue, Belmore, New York. Good evening, members of the board. This evening, we're requesting variances to reduce the rear yard setback from the required 60 foot to 43 feet. This reduction is to allow for a new 359 square foot attached garage for the owners to park a car. The owners are car collectors, and the existing 2-car garage is already filled with 2 cars. Additionally, we're requesting a reduction in the minimum setback for an existing fence from the required 26 to 14 feet from the edge of the road pavement. This wood fence has been in place for over 25 years previous to my client owning the home, and they've never had any complaints from the neighbors. It was additionally approved approximately 7 years ago with a pool, but the pool has since been removed almost immediately after the approval, and my client did not know that he needed to close out the permit. This fence is also camouflaged by a row of trees and bushes that line the area of Lake Avenue. I'll answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you. Anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
Thanks.
Planning?
No, thank you.
No. Anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close this case, please?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next case on the agenda, number 17750, Brett and Carrie Daly, 71 Mayflower Avenue, Smithtown. The location of the property, the northeast corner of Mayflower Avenue and Hawthorne Drive. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting a special exception to permit temporary living quarters for a family member. Variance of a special exception standard to increase temporary living quarters from 600 square feet to 683 square feet. Reduce the minimum front yard on Hawthorne Drive from 25 to 14 feet for proposed 322 square foot first floor addition and 361 square foot second floor addition.
Good evening.
Good evening. Brett Daly, D-A-L-E-Y. I'm the owner of 71 Mayflower Avenue, Smithtown.
Well, thank you. And you'd like this gentleman to speak on your behalf?
Yes, I do.
Fine. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes?
Sorry to interrupt. Do you happen to have the large green return receipt cards?
I do not.
Ooh.
Those are the green ones.
They do exist?
What?
You do?
We didn't get them yet.
You didn't get them back?
Were the letters sent out 2 weeks in advance?
Yes, the 8th of May.
He's here, we can hear it. Have you gone to the post office to inquire?
No, I have not.
Okay, You're going to have to do that,
Yes.
because we're going to need those cards.
Correct.
Well, can we hear the case and not make a decision?
Yes, yeah, exactly, yeah.
The certified mailing receipts are dated the 8th.
Sorry?
The certified mailing receipts are dated May 8th. So they were
That's
mailed
appropriate.
2 weeks ago.
That's appropriate.
All right.
Right, so we can hear the case, but can't decide it until we get those cards.
All right, you understand that?
Yes,
Yeah.
I understand.
Okay.
My
Go ahead.
name is Justin Bertu. Good evening, guys. Bertu, Bertuch, and I am an employee of Emilio Sousa, the architect at 71 Mayflower Avenue. Our office is 25 South Service Road, Jericho, New York. And I'm here today to seeking variances for special exemption to temporary living quarters, variance for special exception, standard 600 square feet to 680 total living square feet, and the front yard variance. The existing non-conforming front yard on Hawthorne Drive is 14 foot 11, and by virtue of our addition, we are decreasing the front yard only by 9 inches to 14 foot 2. The front yard, which is most directly affected by the new addition, Hawthorne Drive, is well screened by natural vegetation, which I have pictures if you'd like to see. And we are replacing the existing converted porch with this new 2-story addition. The porch was attached to the house in the area we intend to build with the new addition with no negative impact on the community since 1964. And that's pretty much it.
All right, thank you. Anyone on the board have any questions?
I do. This is a special exception. We have no PAR?
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Oh, I don't have it. Okay, I didn't get it. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else on the board?
Is
have
anyone
any
else
questions?
missing a PAR? No?
Did you read it? Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get mine.
Planning?
We prepared the PAR recommending approval.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone in the audience? Wait a minute, 1 second. Anyone in the audience have any concerns on this case? No? You have a motion to close the case, please?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Good night now.
I gotta make a note of that.
Yeah.
The next case on the agenda, number 17751, Mobile Fleet, Inc., 10 Commerce Drive, Hauppauge. The location of the property, the northeast corner of Commerce Drive and Moreland Road. The property is zoned LI. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum parking from 104 to 93 spaces.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Vincent Tremarco. I represent the applicant. Submitted the affidavits of posting and mailing to Liam Trotter. You can see that this is a very minimal variance, approximately a variable of 10% parking. This is in an industrial park, as you know. It's not going to change the character of the area. The area is all industrial buildings. Whether the variance is substantial, obviously it isn't. Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect on the environment, the building was there. My clients recently rented the building, and actually what they do is add lights and sirens and the like to fire department vehicles and police vehicles. So we asked the board for its favorable consideration. The difficulty wasn't self-created. That's the parking that was there from the very beginning of the building, the construction. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone on the board have any questions on this application? Planning?
No comments.
No. Anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close this case, please?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next case on the agenda, 17719, Thomas Kennedy, 79 Hemlock Drive, Kings Park. The location of the property, the east side of Hemlock Drive, 100 feet north of Tulip Road. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting a variance to increase the maximum height of a proposed 576 square foot detached garage from 15 feet to 19 feet. Permit environmentally sensitive land, depth of groundwater less than 10 feet, to be altered. Increase the maximum gross floor area from 25 to 29%.
Good evening.
Hi, Donald King, 75 East Main Street, Kings Park, New York, attorney for the applicant. As you know, this is in San Remo, where this board has granted to my clients 40 by 100s, 60 by 100s, 80 by 100s, and 100 by 100s. This is slightly larger than 10,000 square feet. In fact, years ago, between Aspen and St. John, I think you guys gave me a lot of 2,300 square feet. The problem is the insanity of the LURP requirement of floor area ratio of 25%. And in this case, my client wants to build a garage on this large, beautiful lot in San Remo. And in doing so, because whoever devised this plan obviously didn't read it, any part of the basement that is 50% above grade is counted towards floor area ratio. Total insanity. So I have to come before you so he can build this nice little garage due to the fact that his basement, which they count as floor living space, is 50% above grade. We looked at the possibility of throwing dirt against the side of the house, but we abandoned that. He's already reduced the height of the garage because I think there was concerns by planning. And I read to you last time, I'm going to do it one more time and then hand up to you. In 1997, under case 12164, the board granted 25 to 34%. 2002, under case 13781, the board granted my client 25 to 32%. 2003, under case 13894, the board granted 25 to 43%. 2003, under case 104005, 25 to 40%. 2003, under case 14024, 25 to 37%. 2003, case number 14132, 25 to 32%. 2003, case 14006, 25 to 34%. 2005, case number 14823, 25 to 49%. 2006, case 14970, 25 to 31%. 2007, 15149 is the case, 25 to 40%. And 2008, case 15128, 25 to 44%. It's not going to produce a change in the character of the neighborhood. It can't be achieved by another method. We need the variance. It's not substantial. It won't have an adverse effect on the environment, and it isn't self-created because we're here for this. I'm going to hand these up to you.
Thank you.
If you have any doubts about this at all, please take a ride by his property. It's really one of the nicest lots you'll see in San Remo.
Anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
Yeah, what was that third case you cited?
Probably Tansy.
I was just going to look to see how many are.
Who I no longer represent because they asked him to come on the board, and he votes against me all the time.
See what happens? Look at these.
Planning? No?
Comments?
Thank you.
Anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Come on up, please.
I must have made a big mistake on these.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Brad Wynn. WYNN. I live at 80 Orchid Drive, Kings Park, New York. This property that he's proposing to put this on is the only view from my property. I look through the woods, state land, to the sound. If he puts this so-called small garage in his backyard, my view will go from woodlands, oceanfront, or waterfront to garage view. This is the only view on my property looking out. What I see is stream, I see nature preserve, and I see the Kings Park Yacht Club. With this in his backyard will block my view and everything that has anything to do with woods. Right now, I'm having a problem with my own cesspool where the water table is at 4 feet. So I don't know if that would be an issue as well.
Let me just ask you a question. The site plan that I'm looking at here, I guess to the north, it indicates vacant land owned by the town of Smithtown.
Correct.
And then the east, same thing, vacant land. Where is your house?
I am to his property, west-east, one lot.
Oh,
so my backyard
so you're
is adjacent to his backyard.
Okay, all right.
You know, and I got an 8-foot fence and a house right on top of me in my backyard, and he has the only view. So that's the only view going out.
Mm-hmm. Okay, fine.
All right?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. King?
I talked to my client, he has to put the garage in that location that we requested.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. King, is it possible that, does he need the 19 feet? Is there any way you can lower it at all?
We already did lower it. I believe that he talked to planning at one point.
Can you state my name?
Yes, state your
Thomas
name.
Kennedy, owner 79 Hemlock Drive. That's where I live.
Thank you.
Okay. Maybe to address this, I'm not sure if, I'm not putting the garage behind my house. If that's what you...
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, it's not going behind my house. It's going to the side of my house. Like, I don't think it affect, I don't think it affects
Can you just address us? And
Sorry.
Okay.
All right, the house is not going behind, the garage is not going behind the house. It's in line with the house. I don't think it would affect his view at all. I mean,
The sound is to the north of you, correct?
yes,
So his house is to the south of you.
correct,
So your house will block the view of this garage
correct,
from his property.
right.
I think it would be best if he took a look at this. Maybe it would help you guys.
If you have a blueprint or something.
Let him take a look at that. I think it'd help a lot.
Come on up. Here's his house. He's putting it right here.
That's his backyard.
That's where it's going, right here.
Show him the north arrow, so he sees where the sound
Yeah,
is.
so, because this is my property right here.
Right, so,
Yeah, I totally thought it was on the other side. It said 100 feet.
No problem. It's,
No problem. Yeah, as long,
Okay.
as long as he's up.
That's what we're here for.
Yep.
problem solved.
Problem solved. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to close this application, please?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
The next case on the agenda, 17737, Anthony and Juliana Donnarumma, 21 Wandering Way, Smithtown. The location of the property, the north side of Wandering Way, 150 feet north of Wayfarer Lane. The property is zoned R43. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum rear yard setback from 100 feet to 82 feet for an existing 836-square-foot deck. Increase the square footage of a proposed attached garage from 750 square feet to 1,010 square feet with 690 square feet of attic space. Increase the maximum square footage within the LWRP from 4,856 square feet to 6,501 square feet.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to recuse myself from this hearing.
Fine. Good evening.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Anthony Donnarumma. That's Donnarumma. The address is 21 Wandering Way, Smithtown, New York, 1175787, and this is my wife, Juliana.
Good evening.
Hello.
Regarding the deck is an existing deck. It was there when we bought the house 2 years ago. It fits in, it's appropriate to the size of the house. The house is elevated, so you do need the deck to actually get out of the back of the house. So we are asking for a variance on that. There is no ability to have any space between the back of the house and the setback, so that's why we need that setback. We are asking, and we have proposed a 3-car garage. We are a family of 6 right now, planning on staying at 6 at this point and not going to 7 anymore. But the house was built in the 80s. The garages are very small. The cars today don't even fit in the garage, so they're not long enough and they're not high enough. And there is only 2 cars. Between the kids and Julie's father that stays with us, we have to pull in the driveway, come out, go around the front to get into the house. So we are proposing a 3-car garage on the existing driveway, so that our cars can fit in there, plus bikes and equipment, and eventually cars for our children as they get older. The garage proposal that we put together is appropriate with the size of the house. It also, we believe, softens the right side of the house and makes it look a little more appropriate. There is no impact on the septic system, the environment. The garage is being built on the current driveway, so there's no natural vegetation being removed. And we don't believe that the variances are substantial. We have received approval from the DEC, and many of our neighbors have wished us good luck. So, any questions?
I will ask, anyone on the board have any questions?
No, thank you.
No? Planning, any questions?
Mr. Chairman, just to make you aware, a couple of facts about the case. First, the applicant's property is located on the periphery of the LWRP boundaries. Secondly, one of the reasons why there's an issue with the FAR, or the square footage of the house, is that they do have some slopes in the rear of the property, which means that more than 50% of their foundation is exposed, which causes a problem because now the portion of the finished basement that's now more than 50% above grade is actually counted towards the overall square footage of the house, which creates a problem for them overall within the LWRP of roughly about 1,500 square feet. I had a conversation late this afternoon with the Director of Planning, and there was some talk about looking into the possibility that if there was some regrading done around the foundation, and the foundation was no longer 50% above grade, and it was excluded from the square footage calculation, that we could take that square footage and substitute it for the proposed garage with attic space.
Yeah, and we, my architect, Mike Macrina, has drawn those plans up, and he is doing the, I believe, the topographic survey, and there is a portion that would be very natural to make that work. So we are in the process of putting that together and submitting that.
All right, fine. Great, thank you.
Okay?
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close this case, please?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
And that concludes the hearing for tonight.
This was adjourned to the 13th.